The Misfits Manifesto, a logic audit of the cosmic machine. The epistemology of the glitch, an internal inquiry. I am sitting here in the quiet of the night, staring at the concept of the black cloud, and I have to ask myself, is this depression, or is this just high-definition clarity? I need to run a diagnostic on my own soul. I call it a coordinate, this feeling of being intolerable to myself, but let's stress test that metaphor. A coordinate implies a fixed position on a map. But who drew the map? Society drew the map. And if the map is drawn by a civilization that thinks keeping up with the Kardashians is culture and buying a pet rock is a sound investment, then maybe being off the map isn't a defect. Maybe it's a survival strategy. My earliest memory is the feeling of being a glitch. I need to verify the logic here. In computer science, a glitch isn't necessarily a fatal error. It's an unexpected output. It's the code doing something the programmer didn't anticipate. If a programmer is the Gnostic demiurge, the flawed god of this material world, then being a glitch is a badge of honor. It means I am resisting the source code of the archons. I look back at those kids playing sports, the normal ones. They ran the bases, they caught the balls, they high-fived with that unearned confidence that only comes from being completely oblivious to the existential terror of the universe. I watched them, and I felt like a creature from another dimension. They were velociraptors of social integration. They could smell the otherness on me. But here is the audit. Was their confidence real? Or was it a Ponzi scheme funded by their parents? Good job, Timmy. You moved an object through space. You are a god. It's the participation trophy philosophy before it had a name. My father didn't buy into that scheme. He called me a mistake. Now, let's apply the George Carlin razor to this. A mistake. What does that even mean in a biological context? Oops, I accidentally engaged in the fundamental reproductive act of the species. It's absurd. It's lunacy. Unless my father was trying to assemble a lawnmower and I popped out instead, I wasn't a mistake. I was a biological inevitability. But the word sticks. It creates a fissure in the psyche. John Zerga. Unplanned event. Error 404. Love not found. It hurts. Of course, it hurts. It's the ultimate rejection letter from the universe before you've even had a chance to interview for the job. But as a utilitarian, I have to strip the emotion away and look at the utility of the label. If I am a mistake, I am free from the burden of plan. The plan is usually a mortgage, a loveless marriage, and a heart attack at 55. If I am a mistake, I am an improvisation. I am the jazz solo in the middle of a marching band. God doesn't play dice, Einstein said. But maybe he plays jazz. Maybe I'm the blue note that makes the melody interesting. The audit confirms. The black cloud isn't a defect. It's shade. It keeps me from getting sunburned by the radioactive vanity of the world. The tyranny of the mob, a statistical analysis of stupidity. I move to the next data point, the rejection by the tribe. I've been rejected, dumped, and ghosted more times than I cared to count. My last boss, a woman who I am convinced was a social experiment gone wrong, told me, if everyone thinks you're wrong, maybe you are. Let's pause the tape. Let's look at that statement through the lens of history and logic. This is the argumentum ad populum, the appeal to the people. It is the fundamental fallacy of democracy. It assumes that the many possess wisdom. Let's audit the track record of the many, shall we? The many voted to kill Socrates because he was annoying them with logic. The many shouted, "Give us Barabbas," and executed the Prince of Peace. The many thought the earth was flat for about 200,000 years. The many thought slavery was a sound economic model. The many kept the Macarena at number 1 on the Billboard charts for 14 weeks. Are these the people I want validating my life choices? Hell no. If 51% of the population decides that drinking bleach is the cure for the common cold, the utilitarian in me doesn't say, well, the majority has spoken. The utilitarian in me says, invest in funeral homes. Plato understood this. The allegory of the cave isn't just a story, it's a documentary. The mob is chained to the wall, watching shadows, convinced that the puppet show is reality. When the philosopher, the misfit, breaks the chains, walks outside, sees the sun, and comes back to tell them, hey guys, that's just a shadow of a bunny rabbit, do they say, thank you, enlightened one? Number they try to kill him. Why? Because he ruined the movie. I diagnose myself. I have gnosis. I see the bars. The managers hate me because I don't worship the prison. Most corporate managers are textbook narcissists. They don't want utility. They want worship. They want you to wear the branded polo shirt and act like selling subprime insurance is a holy crusade. I walk in there with my utilitarian logic and say, maximize me. Squeeze the lemon. I will work. I will produce. But I will not pretend that this lemon is the holy grail. This offends them. It offends their asshole consciousness. They want the blowfish puff. They want the pretense. And because I refuse to give it to them, I am the bad attitude. The logic holds. My rejection by the mob is not proof of my failure. It is proof of my sanity. To be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society is no measure of health. That's Krishnamurti, but Zerga is co-signing the check. The Michelangelo exception. The absurdity of the artist's CEO. I look at my nature. My form. I am a writer. I am an entertainer. I want to tell the truth and make people laugh while I do it. That is my function in the machine. But the modern world has created a bizarre requirement. The artist must also be the CEO. Imagine going back to Michelangelo while he's on his back painting the Sistine Chapel, paint dripping into his eyes, creating the most beautiful image of God and man ever seen, and shouting up at him, "Hey Mike, great work on the ceiling, but how are your Q3 projections? Have you optimized your SEO keywords for God? You need to build your personal brand on LinkedIn, Mike." He would drop a bucket of plaster on your head, and he would be right. It is lunacy. It is the hustle culture virus. We have decided that creation isn't enough. You must also monetize, market, and manage the creation. It is a violation of the division of labor. This is where my romantic life takes a hit. I always had this naive, rom-com idea that I would meet the business wife. The yin to my yang. I provide the art, she provides the Excel spreadsheets. I provide the chaos, she provides the order. It's the Pauline doctrine of the body. The eye cannot say to the hand, I have no need of you. But the modern dating market is inverted. It is a transactional nightmare. The women I meet don't want to build a legacy. They want to move into a turnkey operation. They want the guy who is already Michelangelo, but with the bank account of Bill Gates. They ask, what do you bring to the table? I say, I bring the table. I bring the soul. I bring the laughter. They say, does the table have a 401k match? It's preposterous. It is a spiritual poverty disguised as high standards. They are looking for a merger, not a marriage, and I refuse to be an acquisition target. I am a human being, not a cryptocurrency that needs to go to the moon to be valuable. The janitor doctrine, thermodynamics and the Black Death. Let's go deeper into the audit. Let's look at the hierarchy of value in this inverted world. This is where the Zerga voice needs to grab the microphone and scream. We worship the wrong people. We worship the idea men. The tech bros, the politicians. The influencers. We treat the people who actually keep the physical universe from collapsing. The janitors, the plumbers, the truck drivers, like NPCs. Like background textures in a video game. Let me hit you with the Black Death argument. 1347 AD, the bubonic plague hits Europe, 200 million people dead. Why? Was it a lack of thought leaders? Was it a lack of consultants? Was it a lack of middle managers? No, it was a lack of hygiene. It was a lack of sanitation. It was rat shit. If Europe had possessed a battalion of well-paid, respected, diligent janitors who understood how to sweep a street and dispose of waste, the fleas wouldn't have bitten the rats wouldn't have bitten the humans, and half the continent wouldn't have dissolved into buboes. We give the Nobel Prize to the doctor who invents the antibiotic. Fine, he deserves it, but where is the statue for the guy who sweeps the gutter so the plague doesn't start? This is basic thermodynamics. The second law says that the universe tends toward entropy, chaos, disorder. Things fall apart, shit piles up. The janitor is the high priest of order. He is fighting a holy war against entropy every single day. If the President of the United States takes a month off, the news cycle gets boring. If the janitors of the world take a month off, civilization ends. The toilets back up. The trash mountains rise. The rats return. And suddenly, your billions of dollars mean nothing because you are dying of cholera in a penthouse. There is no difference between the president and the janitor. Actually, that's false. the janitor is more essential. This is the Stoic equalization. Marcus Aurelius, emperor, and Epictetus, slave, in the eyes of the Logos, they are equal because they both have a role to play. We need to stop worshipping the hood ornament and start worshipping the engine. We need to respect the cogs. I am a cog, and I say that with pride. If the smallest cog in your Rolex breaks, the time stops. It doesn't matter that the face is made of gold. The gold is useless without the steel cog. The categorical imperative of the grind, work as exorcism. So, here I am, John Zerga Jr., the misfit, the glitch. I have come to a radical conclusion: work is better than therapy. Now, don't get me wrong. If you are hearing voices telling you to invade Poland, please, take the pills. Go to the shrink. But for the existential angst, for the black cloud, the cure is the grind. There is something curative about the categorical imperative of labor. Leaving your house, going to a place where you are needed, fixing a problem, it anchors you to reality. When I go to my job, I don't do it for the boss. The boss is likely a pedex, an asshole, who thinks he's a genius. I don't do it for the shareholder value. I do it for the cosmos. This is Kantian ethics with a blue-collar twist. I have a moral duty to perform my function to the best of my ability, not because the reward is great, but because the function is necessary. I call it the lazy employee butterfly effect. If I slack off and don't file the paperwork, the shipment is late. The parts don't arrive at the factory. The machine breaks down. The medicine isn't made. The kid in Ohio doesn't get his inhaler. The kid dies. Okay, maybe that's dramatic. Maybe it just means someone doesn't get their toaster. But the logic holds. We are all connected in a web of utility. When I do my job well, I am reducing the friction in the universe. I am greasing the gears of existence. And there is peace in that. There is peace in being a good cog. I take pride in my work because it is my work. It is the externalization of my internal will. Plato defined justice as everyone doing what they are naturally fitted to do. I may not be painting the Sistine Chapel. I may be filing invoices. But I am going to file those invoices with the precision of a surgeon and the heart of a poet. I am exercising the demons of laziness and entitlement with every hour I clock in. The absurdity of the results-based God. But here's where the world gets it twisted. The world is results-based. The church is results-based. You can send out 5,000 resumes. You can pound the pavement until your feet bleed. You can pray until your knees are calloused. And if you don't get the job, the world says, you're a loser. The church says, you lack faith. This is bizarre. This is lunacy. They judge the outcome, which is often out of your control, luck, nepotism, the economy, and they ignore the effort, which is the only thing under your control. God is not a capitalist. God does not look at the quarterly report. God looks at the sweat. If I strive for 10 years and fail, in the eyes of the world, I am a failure. In the eyes of the utilitarian logic of heaven, I am a success because I generated 10 years of virtue. I generated 10 years of discipline. The outcome is irrelevant. The process is the point. This inverted world loves the guy who cheats and wins. It despises the guy who plays fair and loses. It is the Eddie Izzard history of the world. We stole countries with the cunning use of flags. We stole success with the cunning use of nepotism, and then we call it blessing. It is absurd, and I refuse to subscribe to that magazine. Conclusion: the vindication of the rejected brick. I audit my life, and the ledger balances. I used to hate being the misfit. I used to hate the black cloud, but now, I realize the cloud was protection. It kept me from becoming one of them. If I had fit in, I would be a narcissist middle manager right now. If I had fit in, I would be cheering for war while wearing a cross. If I had fit in, I would be a pedex in a luxury SUV. But I didn't fit in, I was rejected. And the Bible says, the stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. Now, I'm not saying I'm the cornerstone. That's Jesus. He's the big rock. But I am a brick. Maybe a weird-shaped brick. Maybe a brick with some jagged edges. But the master mason knows exactly where I go. He uses the broken pieces to fill the gaps that the perfect, square bricks can't fit into. I am useful. I am productive. And in a utilitarian universe, That is the only definition of happiness that matters. So, let Planet X crash into us. Let the aliens land. Let the economy collapse. Let the chicken shit bake their pies. I'll be over here, doing my job, writing my words, loving the few people who let me love them, and waiting for the shift change. Because eventually, the real boss comes back, and he's going to audit the books, and he knows the difference between a blowfish and a worker. He knows the difference between a shadow and the truth. I'm ready for the audit. Tilda Zerga, in synthesis with the philosophers.